The fire died 3 nights ago. He has not spoken since, not because there is no one to hear him, but because the silence has become so complete that his own voice frightens him. It sounds wrong out here, in the vast dark between the mountains. It sounds like something that does not belong anymore. He walks during the day, following the river south, hoping it will lead him back to familiar ground. But the landscape has changed since the last migration, or perhaps he has simply lost the internal map that once guided him. Every ridge looks the same. Every tree line offers nothing he recognizes. The world has become a stranger, and he is becoming strange within it. The cold is not what will kill him first. He knows how to find shelter, how to scrape out a hollow beneath rock overhangs and line it with dry grass. The hunger is not what will kill him first either. He has gone longer without food. His body knows how to slow itself, how to burn fat reserves and quiet the desperate signals from his stomach. What will kill him first is the quiet. He does not understand this yet. He cannot name the feeling that presses against his chest when the sun sets and there is no voice but wind. He only knows that his hands shake even when he is not cold. He only knows that sleep comes in fragments, interrupted by sounds that are not there, by the phantom sense of someone watching from the darkness. His body is preparing for a threat it cannot see. His mind is scanning for danger in every direction. The exhaustion of this constant vigilance is draining him faster than hunger ever could. Somewhere far behind him, his group has moved on. They searched for 2 days after the river crossing went wrong. They called his name until their throats burned. But resources were low and the children were weak, and there is a calculus that all social animals understand even if they never speak it aloud. The group must survive. The individual cannot hold them hostage to hope. They mourned him around a fire he would never see. They spoke his name one final time, and then they walked south without him. He does not know they grieved. He only knows they are gone. This is not a story about one man. This is a story about what it meant to be human for 200,000 years. And it is a story about a danger so fundamental to our species that we built our entire psychology around avoiding it. Loneliness was not a feeling. It was a death sentence. We have been taught to imagine prehistoric survival as a battle against the elements. We picture early humans struggling against cold, against predators, against the scarcity of food and the danger of injury. These threats were real. They shaped our bodies and our instincts in ways we still carry today. But we have drastically underestimated the threat that shaped us most profoundly. The archaeological record tells a story we did not expect to find. Across dozens of sites spanning tens of thousands of years, researchers have discovered the remains of individuals who should not have survived. A Neanderthal man at Shanidar Cave in Iraq, who lived for years with a withered arm, crushed skull damage, and blindness in one eye. A Homo heidelbergensis individual at Cima de los Huesos in Spain, who survived into old age despite severe spinal deformities that would have made hunting impossible. A child at Kafse Cave in Palestina who lived with hydrocephalus, a condition requiring constant care and attention. These individuals did not survive because they were strong. They survived because someone refused to let them die. The evidence forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about natural selection in human evolution. Survival of the fittest did not mean survival of the strongest or the fastest or the most independent. It meant survival of the most connected. The individuals who thrived were not those who could go it alone. They were those who could maintain bonds strong enough to carry them through vulnerability. And the cost of losing those bonds was catastrophic. Modern neuroscience has begun to map what happens in the brain when social connection is severed. The findings are disturbing in their implications. Loneliness activates the same neural circuits as physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex, the region that processes the suffering component of bodily injury, lights up with identical intensity when we experience social rejection. The brain does not distinguish between a broken bone and a broken bond. Both register as emergencies requiring immediate response. This is not a design flaw. This is the legacy of millions of years during which isolation meant death. When a human being is cut off from their social group, the body initiates a cascade of stress responses that would have made sense in a prehistoric context. Cortisol floods the system, heightening alertness and preparing the body for danger. Sleep becomes fragmented and shallow, ensuring the isolated individual remains vigilant against predators. The immune system shifts resources away from long-term maintenance and toward immediate inflammatory responses, prioritizing short-term survival over long-term health. In the short term, these responses are adaptive. They kept our ancestors alive long enough to find their way back to the group. But if reunion never comes, the system begins to destroy itself. Chronic cortisol elevation damages the hippocampus, impairing memory and spatial navigation. Persistent sleep disruption degrades cognitive function and emotional regulation. The inflammatory immune response, sustained over weeks and months, attacks the body's own tissues and dramatically increases vulnerability to disease. Loneliness does not merely feel bad. It systematically dismantles the biological systems required for survival. The man by the river does not understand the chemistry unfolding inside him. He only knows that he is forgetting things: the name of his mother's sister, the location of the summer fishing grounds, the melody of the song his group sang when they walked. These memories are not simply fading with time. They are being eroded by a brain that has decided long-term information storage is a luxury it can no longer afford. He is becoming less human by the day, not metaphorically, literally. Our ancestors understood something we have largely forgotten. The group was not merely a social preference. It was a survival organ, as essential as the heart or the lungs. Every major advancement in human evolution occurred not through individual genius, but through collective capability. Language emerged because isolated humans had no one to speak to, and therefore, no reason to develop complex communication. Tool-making traditions persisted across generations only because knowledge was transmitted socially. Fire-keeping required cooperation, as the task of maintaining flames through the night demanded shared labor and shared vigilance. A single human, no matter how intelligent or resourceful, was catastrophically vulnerable. Even basic survival tasks that seem individualistic were actually embedded in social systems. Hunting large game required coordination and communication. Processing plant foods required knowledge passed down from elders. Navigating across vast territories required shared mental maps maintained across multiple minds. The isolated human was not merely disadvantaged. The isolated human was incomplete. Consider what it meant to face the Ice Age alone. Temperatures that could drop below survivable thresholds within hours. Predators that had evolved specifically to hunt the weak and the separated. Food sources that appeared and disappeared, according to rhythms that required generations of accumulated knowledge to track. No single human lifetime was long enough to learn everything necessary for survival. Only the collective memory of the group, passed from grandparent to child, contained the information required to persist. When exile came, it severed access to everything. Not just warmth and company, but knowledge itself. The isolated individual was thrust into an environment they could not fully understand, armed with only a fragment of the information required to navigate it. Every skill they possessed had been learned from others. Every tool they carried had been made with techniques developed across countless generations. Alone, they were cut off from the source code of their own survival. And the cutting was not metaphorical. Archaeological evidence suggests that social exclusion was sometimes used as a form of punishment in prehistoric communities. Individuals who violated crucial social norms, who threatened group cohesion through violence or theft or refusal to share, could be cast out. The penalty was not designed as cruelty, it was designed as execution. Everyone understood that exile meant death. The question was only how long it would take. Modern humans carry the biological legacy of this ancient reality. Our nervous systems remain calibrated to a world where isolation signaled imminent mortality. When we experience loneliness today, even in heated apartments with full refrigerators, our bodies respond as though we have been cast out onto the frozen steppe. The stress hormones surge, The sleep becomes shallow. The immune system begins its fatal pivot toward inflammation. We are dying of loneliness in environments where no predator will ever find us. Our biology does not know the difference. The research on modern loneliness is staggering in its implications. Social isolation increases mortality risk by 26%. Loneliness elevates the risk of coronary heart disease by 29%. Stroke risk increases by 32%. These are not correlations with obvious confounding factors. These are robust findings that persist after controlling for age, socioeconomic status, pre-existing health conditions, and lifestyle factors. Loneliness is not merely uncomfortable. It is, statistically speaking, as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes per day, and we are experiencing it at epidemic levels. Surveys across developed nations suggest that between 20 and 40% of adults report feeling lonely often or always. The numbers have been climbing for decades, accelerating through technological and social changes that promised connection, but often delivered its simulation instead. We built a world optimized for individual convenience and forgot that we were not designed to be individuals. We created cities of millions where neighbors never speak. We developed communication technologies that allow constant contact while somehow deepening the sense of disconnection. We pursued independence as the highest value and discovered too late that independence was never the goal. The goal was always interdependence. The man by the river is weakening faster than hunger alone could explain. His body is consuming itself in the sustained emergency of isolation. His mind is fragmenting, losing the coherence that social interaction once maintained. He talks to himself now, a desperate attempt to replace the voices he has lost. But his own voice provides no comfort. The brain knows the difference between dialogue and monologue. It cannot be fooled by echoes. On the seventh night alone, he stops walking. Not because he has given up, because his body has simply stopped obeying commands. He lies in a hollow beneath a rocky outcrop, staring at stars he once knew the names of. Names he learned from his father, who learned them from his father, who learned them from ancestors stretching back beyond memory. He cannot remember the names now. The stars are just light, meaningless and cold. What we call civilization is largely an attempt to ensure that no one dies like this. Our institutions, our technologies, our economic systems, our cities, all of them can be understood as elaborate mechanisms for maintaining connection. The postal service and the telephone and the internet are all attempts to defeat the distance that once meant death. Hospitals and nursing homes and childcare centers are attempts to ensure that vulnerability does not lead to abandonment. We have not always succeeded. We have sometimes built systems that isolate as much as they connect, but the underlying impulse is always the same. Some part of us remembers, in the deep grammar of our genes, that being alone is the oldest emergency our species has ever faced. The group that left him behind will carry his memory for years. They will speak his name in stories, will teach children who never met him about his skill with flint knapping, his patience during long hunts, the way he laughed when spring finally arrived. He will persist in the collective memory long after his individual body has returned to the earth. This is perhaps the final truth about human survival. We were never meant to persist as individuals. We were meant to persist as patterns, as information, as knowledge, and story and song passed from mind to mind across generations. The individual body was always temporary. The connection was meant to be permanent. What killed him was not the cold, though the cold was bitter. What killed him was not hunger, though his stomach ached with emptiness. What killed him was the severance, the cutting of threads that had kept him woven into something larger than himself. He died of loneliness. In a time before loneliness had a name, we still carry his vulnerability. Every nervous system walking the earth today is tuned to the same ancient frequency, scanning constantly for evidence of connection, for proof that we have not been abandoned. When we find it, our bodies relax into safety. When we do not, the old emergency begins again. We did not survive the Ice Age because we were the strongest species. We survived because we were the most thoroughly entangled, because we could not let go of each other, even when letting go might have been easier. Because something in us understood that the fire only stayed lit if everyone gathered around it. The warmth was never just physical, it never was.